Most people are aware that Jason Blundell left Treyarch during the Black Ops 4 game cycle. He left there and went and started his own company called Deviation Games. He was there for a couple of years and was making all kinds of social posts talking about how excited they were about this new game they were developing specifically for Sony. I personally was very excited and wanted to see what they were making, but then in September 2022 they announced that Jason left Deviation Games as well. Then about 6 months later, half of the studio got laid off. There were like 90 people let go from Deviation Studios. JC Backfire was one of them. He was their community manager and he announced that he had gotten laid off. And yeah, we were all devastated. I had seen some information where Sony said the project was absolutely dead and they needed to figure out something else by December or they were going to lose funding. We were all kind of like, oh my God, what's going to happen now? Like we were looking forward to this game and like what's going to happen to JC? And Jason, will we ever see Jason again? Then 7 months later, after that announcement of the Deviation layoff, Jason Blundell shows up in JC Backfire's live stream. As soon as I saw this, I was like, something is up because Jason Blundell stays off of social media entirely and he's very underground. For Jason to show up like this, and he showed up in a big way because he did like a couple of hours, I think, or more, and talked about his whole life from childhood. But for him to be this public and really putting himself out there, I was like, yeah, something is going on behind the scenes. These two seemed really happy and having a great time for people that had quit their jobs and gotten laid off, but there's a reason for that. This live stream was in late August this year, and they had gotten back together and were working on a really big project, but they couldn't say anything publicly yet. It wasn't until a few days ago they were able to say something, and JC made a tweet. He said, job update. I've been wanting to say this for a while, but now I finally can. I'm a junior game designer at PlayStation Studios, and I work for Jason Blundell. That was definitely the mic drop moment, and this tweet blew up. I did a little bit of digging and found some really interesting information that goes along with this that shows some of the timeline of when all this went down, and then also some really important people from Treyarch and Deviation Games that left those two studios to go work with Jason at PlayStation Studios. One dude is probably the biggest guy in Call of Duty, and he looks like he might have gone over there. So JC has on his LinkedIn that he started at Sony Interactive in July of this year, which is 6 months ago, and then a month later he did the live stream with Jason. And then this month he announced that he couldn't say anything until now. He did mention just a little bit more on Twitter about this. He said, all I can say right now is I'm at a PlayStation studio working on an unannounced project. And we know JC as being a gamer and a zombies player, and now he's moving into game development. Someone asked him about that, and he said, I definitely entered the industry from the market side first and then learned more skills as I went along the way. I'm very grateful to be able to find that path. So congrats to him. That is exciting news. I know a lot of us are going to be ecstatic to see what these guys are working on. Now, going back to that information I dug up about the timeline of when all this went down, it could give us an indication of someone really big that is working with them. If you go to LinkedIn and you do a search for who works at Sony Interactive, but also previously worked at Deviation Games or Treyarch, this is the list of names that come up. So there are 9 people on here, and JC is on that list, and these are just the people that are actually reporting this. There's going to be more that don't even have a LinkedIn or haven't even updated their status. There's one guy on here that is a long-time employee from Treyarch that was an executive that has gone over. It's this guy here. He worked at Treyarch and Activision for 15 plus years, and then he's left, and now he is working at Sony Interactive, and he got hired 7 months ago, about the same time as JC. This guy here, Fred Thompson, he worked at Deviation Games, and he was a pretty big deal. He was their design director. He led the design and ground up development of the entire game. He left Deviation and has gone over to Sony Interactive Entertainment, and he started in June, 7 months ago, about the same time as JC and the other guy. He's the principal game designer over there. Seems like a pretty big deal, and when he made this post that he was working there, he said that he's leading the design for an unannounced project. The guy in the middle here, Kristen Syke, he was the principal animator at Deviation Games, and he's also left to go to Sony. He was at Treyarch for 7 years, and he's the guy that did our zombies cutscenes, and then he left to go to Deviation Games with Jason, and now he's at Sony. And his timeline fits the same as the other guys. It looks like they all kind of moved over to Sony this last summer. And it seems like some of these guys really stick together. And now I'll explain why looking at these timelines could lead us to some information that someone really big has moved over to Sony as well. If you guys remember this unbelievable announcement, Vandahar tweets, after an incredible 18 years and 8 Call of Duty games, I'm moving on to explore new opportunities. More here, and he links his LinkedIn. This dude was Call of Duty, and he just ups and leaves. But look at that timeline of this announcement. It's this last summer, about the same time that all these people are going over to Sony. If you go to his LinkedIn, you can see that, yeah, he left Treyarch this last August in 2023. And the new place he's at, he's a game designer at a classified company. Like, he does not want to say where he's at. He's saying that he started in August of 2023. So he left Treyarch and jumped right over to this new place. So it seems fitting that maybe he's gone to Sony, and if so, that says a lot about what they could be working on. For me, this is nothing but good news. I was really upset when Jason left Deviation and then JC got laid off. Like, man, we were really pulling for those guys. But they are back together and back in action, and hopefully in a really big way. If Sony is backing them and they are working for PlayStation Studios directly, then there could be hope for something really incredible in the works. But let me know if you guys are just as excited as I am, and we'll see you guys next video.